Welcome to the Scott Holland Podcast, back here on Thanksgiving week with a number of things that we are thankful for. I think one notable thing that we'll be talking about later in this podcast that we are not thankful for, but has been, I think, nice, if nothing else, to have a majority of sports we talk about tonight. We're either in a positive mood about it, or we maybe don't know a lot about this team yet, but we're feeling kind of positive about the early returns. And also we're going to talk about football at some point, which I don't think fills any of us with gratitude and thanks in this week that is ostensibly about gratitude and thanks. So I am going to start this out by asking you both a question that in our 16-ish years of friendship each, I don't know if I've asked either of you. I'm excited
concerning.
About. So,
I'm very concerned.
Oh no, you're like thinking I'm going to go in a weird direction here, and you're like, oh, it was actually more conventional. I thought. Dustin, my friend and co-host, the one I've not talked to as recently, how are you doing, and what is your go-to Thanksgiving food? Like, what is the food that you're actually like? This is something Thanksgiving adjacent that I actually kind of like.
Thanksgiving food. Okay. Well, I'm doing pretty well. I'm enjoying the short week at work this week. Put in, it's the Thanksgiving week where, like, yeah, even if you show up for a couple of days, like, no one's really like 100% locked in. Everyone's kind of having a good time and hanging out and getting.
I left the office today and everyone just assumed like, okay, I'll see you next week. And it's just like, I didn't even tell you guys I'm working from home. You just kind of fucking assumed. Sorry.
Yeah. No. So I mean, that's good. And then excited to be heading out and seeing some folks on over the Thanksgiving holiday. So looking forward to that. I don't know, my go-to Thanksgiving food, I don't know that I have one that I am just like in love with, but man, get some turkey and like put some of that gravy on top of that turkey. So it's just, yeah, I like pouring a little, you get that little turkey and you pour it into the mashed, you take a bite with the mashed potatoes and the gravy and the turkey all in one bite. Like, that's good stuff. Do I want to eat that any day of the week other than Thanksgiving? No. I like it. Is the food really, as much as even Thanksgiving a holiday is about the food, is, I don't know, I think it's more about the family and the company than it is the food, even on a holiday that's specifically about the food. But yeah, that one like turkey mashed potato gravy bite is going to be pretty delightful. And you know what, my real answer, hold on, scratch that entire answer and just go with all of like the pie that you have on Thanksgiving, because I'm I'm not a big cake person. Love me some pie. I don't even know what pies are going to be, but I know I'm going to eat entirely too much of it.
My company actually pays for your pie every year. If you're in the field like I am, if you're a remote person.
But isn't your company like also health conscious? They're like, we want you guys eating healthy inside. They're also like, here's some free pie. Okay, sorry.
It is. Like, I can't provide donuts for my trainings and stuff. Like, they're like, no, you absolutely can't do it. But for Thanksgiving, they're like, screw it, let's do some pie. So everybody gets to like expense pie for the week. So which sounds awesome. Like, but then I have to do the expense report and I gotta like deal with that, which isn't always fun. Expense reports suck. So sorry to interrupt there, but it's just a fun little thing that, like, I'm guaranteed at least one good pie every year.
As that transition, Bobby, how are you doing? And Thanksgiving food of choice. You cannot choose pie. That's the advantage Dustin had. Dustin had the entire
Dustin got to
selection
go first.
of Thanksgiving foods to choose from. You have the entire selection minus pie.
Yeah, no. So far so good. Like you said, week of Thanksgiving, it's kind of chill out. I had a bunch of meetings today and then like nothing really tomorrow and Thursday, but work in retail like I do Friday, Saturday, Sunday may not be as much fun, but I am going to Waco tomorrow for the U of H volleyball team taking on the Baylor Bears.
Nice,
so
nice.
I'm headed down for that game, and then I'll see my parents while we're there. So really looking forward to that. And then favorite Thanksgiving food. All right, I have a controversial opinion here. My favorite is stuffing, but here's the thing.
That's not controversial. That was that you actually took my answer. So
I don't want your homemade stuffing. Like, can we all agree that stovetop has nailed it? Like, stovetop's the best stuffing. I don't care what you try to make. Like, the people at stovetop, they have nailed dressing. Like, if I show up somewhere and they have stovetop, I'm going to be way more excited for stovetop than I am like your homemade dressing with your little, like, everyone says, no, my dressing's good. And it's always dry. The celery and it's always undercooked and it's disgusting. Like, no, yeah. I just want stovetop. Make stovetop.
I was going to say, like, I think the best stuffing I've ever had in my life is not stovetop, but 100%. If it's like, if I can choose between someone just bringing stovetop or someone bringing their homemade, like there's way too much variation on the ladder. Give me the stovetop.
Like, I don't need cranberries
I know
in
what I'm
that
getting.
shit.
I
Like,
know I'm going to be happy with it. Exactly. You didn't add anything weird. You just followed the damn instructions on the box.
you added hot water. That's all you did.
I'm just gonna say, and I agree with stovetop is fantastic. Stovetop has nailed it, but I would be remiss if I didn't shout out my mom's seafood stuffing that she does. It's absolutely fantastic. Is never been dry, is never not delivered on deliciousness for me. So shout out my mom, who is 100% not gonna listen to this. My dad might like call her in the room, Ann, come in here, like you can listen to this. He's shouting out your seafood stuffing, but no, stovetop is really fantastic. Good choices from you both. Actually, I was gonna say green bean casserole. Believe it or not, that is something I would have reacted as a kid. I would have reacted to that and been like, green bean casserole is vile. I don't want any of that. But like, the little French fried onions too. Like those are low key fantastic snack too. Like my significant other like will get an extra thing of it because they know that I'm gonna just like snack on them and we don't want to get to like Thursday and it. So that's my vote. Like I think I would put stuffing and maybe even like Dustin's initial answer of turkey before that. But there we go. So gonna transition here smoothly from Thanksgiving talk to a little podcast business here. Gonna shout out our Patreon here, patreon.com/SHPAWDcast. If you are a patron of this show, you've gotten 2 instant reacts in the last 2 weeks, in addition to Bobby and I doing a standalone episode about the future of our lightning rod of a football coach as well. Talked to an hour about Dana Holgerson, the situation as it is, and what we think will happen over there at patreon.com/SHPAWDcast. May tease a little written content too as well that's in the football realm for your Thanksgiving week here. Excited to give that to y'all as well. 16 cents a day. You could support what we do as an independent Houston Cougar weekly podcast. Gotta also shout out our good friends. Very thankful in this week of thanks for Charlie Hustle, charliehustle.com. They did some fantastic stuff. I would, of course, watch this space as we come forth to Black Friday and Cyber Monday. You can save any day of the week, no matter the week of Thanksgiving, the week of not being thankful for anything in your life. You're gonna be thankful for our promo code SHP15. Gonna save 15% off your Charlie Hustle order. Fantastic shirts, hoodies, crew necks, really good designs. You're gonna look good, you're gonna feel good. charliehustle.com. Great folks over there, excited for what's on the horizon and excited for y'all to if you haven't already, really take them up on a fantastic Houston Cougar collection. That's Charlie Hustle, charliehustle.com. Guys, I am also thankful for Houston Cougar basketball, who had a fantastic week in Charleston, a 3-0 week, another. It feels like we almost stack every single year. I know it's not every single year, but like it feels like this is such a good program in those like Thanksgiving and Christmas events. I was like looking back on, you have Diamond Head back in 2019. I remembered this one. I don't know where I pulled this from the recesses of my mind, Dustin, but the one random tournament in Florida in Samson's second year where we could not watch it. We actually listened to an audio broadcast on our TV in the living room of our place back in Jersey Village. I can't. It was like
how wonderfully 2007 of you guys.
Yeah, right. It was we beat Vermont on a buzzer beater in the championship game in that one. So continuing the Charleston Classic where the Cougars went 3-0 with wins over Towson, Utah, and Dayton. And I think we finally got to see this team against a decent level of competition, with all respect to Stetson, A&M Corpus, and ULM. Actually got to see teams that would challenge the Cougars in any way. And I feel like, I don't think I'm overstating and saying, guys, that this team passed with flying colors.
Yeah, I think my big picture overall takeaway is like you said, Houston hadn't played anybody capable of beating them yet prior to this tournament, and they played 2 of those teams, again, respect to Towson, but, I think Utah and Dayton were both teams that were, if Houston doesn't bring their A game, doesn't play well, those are teams that can beat you. Those were the first 2 hurdles this season. Per Ken Palm, Utah was a tier A win. Dayton was a tier B win. So good to get those hurdles cleared. There are 17 more tier A or B games on Houston's regular season schedule, never mind conference tournament, NCAA tournament. So, a lot of basketball to be played. Kind of, I think, reminds you that it's early. It's premature to be making any broad sweeping statements about this team or this season for sure. But yeah, I mean, you had 2 hurdles in front of you this weekend and you passed them both impressively. And I think that's something to be happy about for sure. And to be 6-0 at this point without having a game be, a single digit game up until this point, regardless of who you're playing. I think that you can be happy with that as a first step to the foundation of your season?
Yeah, for me, the big takeaway was watching the offense actually kind of develop a little bit. Going into the weekend or the week, it was kind of a little concerning. LJ Cryer, he had he played okay, but he didn't look like he was shooting as well as I kind of expected him to coming into the season. And he really showed up in this tournament and really kind of found his way in the offense. So, and on top of that, always good to come home with the trophy. If you're gonna play for a trophy, come home with the trophy, and win the damn thing, no matter where you are. So super excited about that. And even though this team has made some deep runs in the NCAA tournament the last couple of years, you get new guys, you kind of have to learn how to win. And I think Sam mentioned this last week, where you learn how to win in a tournament where the games are kind of close to each other. There's a little bit of pressure on you versus playing ULM and that kind of stuff. So really, really excited to see how the team played this week and came away with wins. And, Dustin, I didn't even notice that we haven't had a win by single digits yet, and it's still 10 points or more. So that's a really exciting thing as well.
Yeah, it doesn't look like a team with a number of new guys. Like Jamal Shed and LJ Cryer, when they play together in this backcourt, don't look like they've been playing together for 6 games. Look, LJ Cryer looks like he's been in this program at least the past couple of years. And I'm not going to say we haven't had other really good shooters, but I don't think we have seen a better shooter than LJ Cryer. I think he might be the best we ever have seen in this program in this era of Kelvin Sampson basketball. When it's all said and done. Just it is art to watch LJ Cryer shoot. There's just absolutely no wasted motion in that shot. I mean, I think there's a lot of ways to skin a cat in terms of the jump shot, but like it's a technically perfect jump shot, as much as in my layman's perspective I can judge that. And I think you've truly seen. I mean, I don't think this is a this year phenomenon. I think that he was very much one of the leaders of this program prior to, but I think you're truly seeing this become Jamal Shed's team. Not that Jamal Shed is the only big contributor. I mean, we saw Wani Roberts have a really good tournament. The Wani Roberts game against Utah, just getting a double against the tallest team in the NCAA when you're a 6'7", and you know how we feel about like height listings. There might be a little bit of padding there. So a listed 6'7" guy getting a double and really impacting winning the way Wani did in this game against a team as tall as Utah. I thought that was really impressive. And I think you saw just generally like this team is ahead of where, and we've been spoiled by basically nothing but very good to really good U of H basketball teams these last 6-7 years. And where this team is right now in late November, like way before we're playing truly meaningful basketball, it's impressive. Like you have to really actively work not to get over your skis here about this team, because they've just looked very, very impressive. That you're already, even with some new faces, even with guys who are returning but playing bigger roles, you're playing defense at the Kelvin Sampson level, you're rebounding at the level. But like, I think the offensive ceiling, it might, when it's all said and done, I don't want to overstate it because we've had some very good teams. We've had a Final Four team in the last few years. This might be the highest offensive ceiling Kelvin Sampson team, because you have LJ Cryer, you have Jamal Shed, not just as a distributor and the kind of the tip of the spear defensively, but a guy who can also call his own numbers. As we saw, I think in the championship game against Dayton, a guy who can make things happen himself offensively. And that's right. And Javier, the one starter I feel like I haven't mentioned, being able to actually play extended minutes without getting in foul trouble. And also, I think, give you more of a traditional center, something we've, I think, kind of gotten used to having under Sampson more years than not until last year. I think he's proving why the staff was so willing to leave it be Javier and Wani as kind of the starting front court there. They didn't seem to really go after a replacement in the portal. So I think, again, trying not to go too crazy over a team with a 6-game sample size, but I think it's such an exciting start to the season in a program we were all, the three of us in this fan base, really high on.
Yeah, I think the thing for me that maybe makes it the hardest to not get out over my skis about this team early on is, you talked about LJ Cryer looking like he's been in the program for a couple of years. I would say the same thing about Damian Dunn. I'd say the same thing about JoJo Tugler. I'd say the same thing about Malik Wilson. Like all 4 of those guys that we had not seen play for the Cougars before, you see why the staff brought them into play right away, because they were ready to play the style that Houston plays. They're ready to play at the level of energy that Houston plays. It's not to say that maybe there's not more still to develop from those guys as they get, even further, used to the system and everything. But, I think all four of those guys have come out and really shown why it is that the staff targeted them, and why it is that the staff was comfortable bringing them in and having them be the, the additional pieces that they need to kind of, carry on some talented players like Wani and Javier and Jamal coming back from last year's team. So said 6-game sample size, but as far as the 6 game, as far as the sample size that you've seen, Houston's handled it about as well as you can ask for.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been, I don't have too much to add on top of what you guys did. The thing that makes you want to get excited is, like Dustin said, the newcomers who have come in and just look like they filled in perfectly. I'll be the one to kind of get us started a little bit on the negative train, but versus Utah, and having Matson go off for 29 and just repeatedly nail.
I'm having nightmares about that
shot
guy
after shot,
that guy
in
hitting
your face,
threes.
just isn't great. But sometimes guys get hot, right? In fact, we saw that in the game that got us eliminated in the NCAA tournament. Sometimes guys are just going to get hot and just can't miss. And how do you bounce back from that? And something Sam pointed out and has pointed out a couple of times is the slow starts are starting to get a little worrying, right? It's starting to get a little scary on our slower starts. It gets a little troubling to say the least on the slow starts, and against a team like Kansas or some of those better teams on the schedule, you're not going to be able to get away with that. And so you really want to make sure that you're starting off a little bit better.
I do like in the championship game that you started out strong on that one. That was always good. Yeah.
I was gonna say 2 of the 3 games this week. We saw Houston race out to a 37-17 halftime lead over Towson, really put that game away in the first half. And to Towson's credit, they regrouped and played an impressive second half. But ultimately, I think the talent gap there was too large. And then again in Dayton, when Houston jumped out to a 19-10 lead at the beginning of that game, and not to say that there weren't some like runs back and forth in that one. We certainly saw Nate Santos and Deron Holmes for the Flyers were both impressive, and both kind of went on some one-man runs at a couple of points to kind of like the edge back game. I don't know. After that 19-10, it never really felt like Houston was in control the rest of the way. I think Utah felt like the one game this week where it felt a little bit scary. You weren't quite sure where it was going to go at times. But yeah, I mean, you talked about it, Sam. I just want to kind of re-emphasize how good Wani was in this game, because
so good.
Utah came out firing. They came out scoring, a bunch of points right out of the gates. And, it's hard. It's one of the reasons you hear coaches talking about like they like doing these in-season tournaments is because it's a good prep for the NCAA tournament, right? Where, in the NCAA tournament, you're not even playing games back to back. Like Houston had to play Towson and Utah back to back, but it's similar where you're not getting the full usual 3 or 4 days of having a practice and having just time to really get to know the team that you're playing next. It's kind of a shorter, time to get used to this team. And sometimes they come, right out of the gates just firing like Utah did, but we saw Wani score a bunch of points early on to keep Houston within striking distance. Ended up with 13 and 12 in this one. Jamal Shed was all over the place as usual. 14 points, 6 boards, 5 assists, 3 steals. Cryer and Sharp in double digits again. So
is that a good line?
That's pretty good. It's pretty good. That's called stuffing the stat sheet, I believe. But yeah, the Towson and Utah games back to back kind of felt like if Houston has the season that we want them to and makes the NCAA tournament, that feels like that could be like a first and second round of the NCAA kind of pair of games. And Houston, it's not to say either game went exactly perfectly. Getting outscored by Towson in the second half was a little bit, not what you'd love to see. Utah coming out strong and Houston having had kind of a slow start, and then Utah certainly making another run in the second half to make it kind of close again before Houston pulled it out. It could have been a little bit better, but ultimately Houston handled business, and as much as we talk about survive and advance the NCAA tournament, it's kind of a similar thing, right? You get the win, you put the W on your resume, and you keep going.
I was gonna say, like, what I love about college basketball is that it's a marathon of a season, that you want to have games like Friday's game where your team gets punched in the mouth, gets tested, faces an opponent that maybe is kind of a torture test in terms of just having a number of like guys between 6'6" and just over 7 feet who could also shoot it conceivably from the perimeter. Like that's a difficult test. Like the goal isn't here. And again, why I like this sport more than college football now, the goal isn't to have an undefeated schedule. The goal is to be the best team you could possibly be come mid-March through early April. And I'm not going to say Utah is going to be a truly elite team this year, but I think that's a pretty good team that we beat on Friday. And I like that we saw how this Cougar team is going to respond when it's not a game where you get out to an early 20-something point lead and just coast because you're outmatching this opponent in so many different ways, like you did to Towson, and even more so the first 3 home games that you played. Again, I'm going to have nightmares about Gabe Madsen hitting all those threes on us, certainly, but I like that we got that test. Like, you're going to learn more about that than playing a bye game versus an opponent that truly is never going to challenge you. Like, I would say that Utah team is probably going to be somewhat comparable to a lower middle of the Big 12 team. And yeah, I think that was a good test. And Jamal, if you didn't watch this game, you'd kind of look at I think you'd look askance at like Jamal Shed being 5 of 17, I believe it was, from the field. But like you said, Dustin, he impacted winning in so many different ways, and that's one of the reasons you could be like really excited about this team. Wanted to also mention with the Dayton game, my cousin is a UD alum and Flyers fan. He sent me this text message after the game. It was just very small. I was like, this must be how like Bama football fans feel or something like that. I'm quoting my cousin David here. Quote, "You've convinced everyone in Dayton that Houston is the real deal. If they don't know, now they know. Good luck the rest of the season." Ultimate compliment. The ultimate like text you want to receive from somebody who, family member or friend or something like that who has a different rooting interest than you. I thought the Cougs did a really good job. They're despite, I think, the crowd really feeling like it was almost like a Dayton home game in Charleston, and you never saw the Cougs really let that crowd get into it. I mean, you kind of heard them get loud there late in the first half, and they got to single digits. But I remember seeing this big crowd and being like, "Ooh, like if they get out to an early lead like Utah did, like unlike that game, it's going to be like you're going to feel like you're playing in a quasi road environment." And something I really liked about last year's team is I thought they really responded well whenever they went to a hostile environment, and I thought in this little 1-game sample size, the Cougs did the same in the championship against Dayton. Really, really impressive way to finish off the weekend there on Sunday.
The only other thing I wanted to end on talking about this weekend's games was just to kind of underscore how well Jamal Shed played, especially the last 2 games, the Utah game and the Dayton game also. And he's someone who, through the first 4 games of the season, right, against the teams that, like I said, we're never going to beat Houston. He's been kind of in the background a little bit. He's not been the first or second or third guy that we've talked about the most through the first 4 games of the season. But man, when you start playing the teams that can beat you, Jamal Shed showed up in a big way. He showed up in a big way in both of these games, impacted winning in multiple different ways in both of these games. And I think showed why he is, I don't know if he's going to have the numbers this year to have like an All-American consideration, but I feel like he probably is going to get at least some consideration, because I think there's a lot of coaches out there that realize how unbelievably positive, what an unbelievable, just positive impact this guy is, and what an unbelievable winner he is, and how lucky Houston is to have him.
Yeah, I think it very much feels like a situation with like an MVP voting where maybe the left tackle or the tight end is your most valuable player, but he doesn't get the shine of the quarterback. And like you said, he may not have the stats to get that All-American consideration, but man, on a top 10 team, arguably a top 5 team, he's your most important player. He's probably your best player. And when you need to put the team on your back, he's going to be the guy who's going to do that for you. So if you need a big bucket, Jamal Shed's he's at least going to set it up perfectly. He may get the assist on it. He may take the shot himself, but either way, he's going to be involved in those big moments for you.
I was going to say, we've talked a lot, I think correctly, about how this team looks different than even some of the really good teams that have followed it. And I think we're all right on that, but I thought it was still cool. There's still a through line. Like, this is still a team that's going to kick your ass on the defensive end and on the offensive glass. The Cougs rebounded 47% of their misses against Dayton, which on my scientific opinion is some extremely Kelvin Sampson Houston Cougar basketball shit. That was very cool. Yeah, squeezing the life out of them.
Absolutely.
Like, we do it with more offensive skill now, but it's still cool to see like, oh yeah, this is never going to be a finesse team. This is a team that might have some like offensive skill, but is always going to win by beating your ass too.
Yep. Speaking of Houston beating people's asses, a team we expect them to do that too is Montana, who the Cougars will host on Friday afternoon. I will say the Grizzlies through 3 games look like someone who maybe I wouldn't have used that segue on, because they opened with a comfortable win over a non-D1 opponent, then went to Oregon and gave the Ducks a game. That one was tied at the half. before Oregon eventually pulled away and won by 14. And they followed that up with a 13-point home win over UC Davis. But they then followed that up with a 78-69 home loss to a 200-plus ranked North Dakota State team that takes a little bit of the shine off of the early season results for the Montana Grizzlies. I think it makes it harder to take this team as seriously. Looking through the numbers through the small sample size early on in the year, they're rebounding pretty poorly. They're under 30% on their threes. They don't force turnovers, although they don't really commit them either. But I don't know, just looking at this team's, even with the respectable game against Oregon, kind of looking at their numbers, looking at their resume, looking at what they've been the last several years, it's, I don't know, just hard to see what they're going to do that's going to bother Houston too much.
Yeah, I think the only things I would add is they have a veteran point guard as well, Brandon Whitney. So I'm kind of interested to see that Brandon Whitney versus Jamal Shed head-to-head that we'll probably get a decent amount of on Friday. And, with any opponent, I try to look and see if it's a good size underdog. What's the path to an upset or a closer than expected game here? Not sure I see it here. I think the prerequisites to challenge this Cougar team, you have to have, I think, some combination of offensive rebounding, size, or perimeter shooting. And with all respect to this roster full of guys who are athletes beyond what I'll ever be, the Grizz don't really have any of those things. They're making just under 29% of their 3-pointers. They're 311th nationally in offensive rebounding. They're 216th in average height, and they're really bad at forcing turnovers. So maybe the Grizz proved me wrong on Friday, but not really seeing the potential ingredients for an upset here.
Yeah,
but coming off almost a week of, and Thanksgiving and stuff like that. So, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't have too much to add on top of that. It looks like Montana can maybe score a little bit. They're averaging 78.8 points a game, but that is handled a little bit by their first game that they scored 107, 61 versus Oregon. You'd like to think U of H is going to be able to score against this team, but it does look like they can put the ball in the bucket a little bit. I just wanted to point out, just if you go to their page and it's like their last 5 opponents, they played somebody with the initials North, which could just be a lot of different things. So it just reminded me of NCAA basketball games or NCAA football games when you play FCS North or FCS Southeast. It just reminded me of that. So just a funny little thing there that North is the school's abbreviation, and there's no logo for them. And if you were curious, it's the Northwest Indian Eagles. I have no idea where that is.
Right on the tip of my tongue, honestly.
Yeah,
can I imagine? Let me guess that. To be honest.
So yeah, just
I was certain it was like a Bible college. I was certain there would be something Bible college.
If you were curious about their opponent that they put 107 up on, the initials are North. So there you go.
Yeah, I mean, some games you go, oh, what the path to an upset is, you can kind of craft it, analytically or whatever. And sometimes you have to go, well, college sports are crazy, and it's going to have to play its worst game of the year at some point this year. And if they do that on Friday, then maybe Montana will make it a game, but that's probably what it'll take. Sticking with hoops, women's basketball also stayed unbeaten this past week by drubbing Grambling State 106-74. Again, we kind of knew there was always going to be an overmatched opponent, although they did come off of a surprising upset win over Arizona State that maybe made you give a little bit of pause, but nonetheless, Houston, continued their early season trend of basically scoring at will, like we've seen them do in now all 3 of their games after managing a measly 99 in the season opener against Air Force, have put up 106 exactly in back-to-back games, marking just the 3rd time in program history that Houston has broken the century mark in consecutive games, first time since the 95-96 season. And man, you just have to talk about transfer Malia Johnson having her breakout game as a Cougar.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't miss a shot until I believe it was the 4th quarter when she finally missed one. Ended up with 24 points and 20 minutes off the bench on 7 of 9 shooting from the floor, including 3 of 4 from beyond the arc, and a perfect 7 of 7 from the charity stripe. Grabbed 7 boards and dealt out 4 assists for good measure. And unsurprisingly, Houston continued to dominate the turnover margin. They were plus 16 in turnovers. They were plus 32 in points off turnovers, and they won the game by 32 points. So I'd say the turnovers were a pretty key factor there, guys.
Yeah, like you said, not a whole lot you could take away from this additional thoroughly dominating performance. They're 3rd in as many games. from this program. We'll know that the Cougars beat Grambling by a bigger margin than our former conference mates, consistent women's basketball power South Florida as well. And you noted, Dustin, they're coming off that big home win over Arizona State. A quick aside there, this is 2 years in a row that an Arizona State basketball program of some kind has lost to a SWAC team because of that Pac-12 SWAC thing they're doing. Remember, if you'll recall, TSU beat Arizona State in Houston last year. Still really cool the Pac-12 is doing it. Probably at least some like internally just like, cool, really like all these sub 200 KenPom losses or the women's basketball we're getting. Yeah, like you said, Dustin, Leah Johnson was really good, did a lot of things well. I think I wanted to note that seeing a UH women's basketball front court player go 7 of 7 on free throws, absolute sight for sore eyes.
It's amazing.
Yeah, the way we've seen that position group struggle at the charity stripe under this coach for all the things I think we've seen it do well. Wanted to also know, it's early returns, but I really like having Nia Boyd run the point. I think that's kind of freed up Layla Blair and Brittany Onyeje to play more off the ball, maybe play a bit more to their strengths. I thought that we saw Blair last year. We saw the point guard duties kind of, I guess, maybe interfere with her scoring ability and just turnovers in some key games last year. So like that she has the ability to do that, like that there's someone there to take pressure off her. And again, valuable from these early games that you're not having to put as many minutes on your starters, that you've been able to empty the bench 3 of 3 games. Don't want to overreact to these 3, but this isn't the first time, I will say, that we've seen this program play 3 not great opponents in a row. Like Huey is generally like loaded up on the non-conference in the AAC days, but this is the first time, guys, since 1995 and 96, that season, that U of H has scored this many games over a 3-game stretch. Are these 3 opponents that the Cougars absolutely should have beaten by a lot? Yes, but I think it's worth noting after a season where we saw this team really having nightmarishly difficult time putting the ball in the basket, that the Cougs were able to do it at this level. Like, obviously, you're not going to be putting up these kind of numbers against the better Big 12 teams you see this year. And I don't think I'm penciling in this team as, an at-large top 4 seed in the women's tournament just yet, but I'll choose to be happy about this. Like, there's nothing, you lose nothing by allowing yourself a little bit of hope, even though I think you could fairly say, like, hey, these are 3 opponents that the Cougars should beat pretty comfortably.
Yeah, and for me, again, not trying to get too excited about this and this team, because I think we had a discussion where it feels kind of like soccer did a little bit, and how excited we were because we were scoring and that kind of stuff. But, just kind of looking back at last year, we played bad teams last year too, and we didn't score this much. And against a team like we played with Grambling, right? We played them. We gave up 74, which is a lot, but we also scored 106. We shot, let me pull it up here. What did we shoot on the evening? It
was like 47, 48%. Yeah, 47, 48%, something like that. Like good.
50.6. 50.6, right? Versus last year we played A&M Commerce and we weren't shooting that high, right? We played a bad team and we weren't able to, we shot at 36.8%. So like I don't think the looks that we got against Grambling are worse than the one, or are better than the ones we got against A&M Commerce last year. Like they're kind of equivalent in terms of their talents and things like that. And you're shooting 20% better. We wanted this team to score and shoot a better percentage, and simply put, they are. It's not like the quality of the opponent has gone down so much that you can expect a 14-point increase in the percentage that you shoot. And so I don't think the shots are getting that much easier, but the percentage is going up significantly. So maybe the hope is that you've taken that lid off the basket that you just seem to inexplicably run against last year.
Yeah, I think the only things you can say about the opening 3 games of the season for women's basketball that are negative is like, A, like, okay, who have they played yet? And then B, kind of like you said, it's just, because okay, yeah, they're scoring more points than they were last year. They're beating bad teams more than they were last year. That's exactly the things that we said about women's soccer team in non-conference. And then it got to conference play, and they kind of looked about the same as they did last year. Ended the season in about the same place as they did last year. And I think the thing for me is that kind of nags at me when I want to get real excited about the first 3 games is just the like, the Coach Huey style of doing the full court press, does that work against good teams? Like
absolutely.
The extent to which it works against bad teams is maybe a little bit variable from year to year, depending on what team you have. But we just haven't seen it consistently work against good teams. And there's probably a reason why we're I think the only team in the Big 12 that plays that way. So it may be an interesting, I guess that's going to be the storyline, getting into facing some of the better teams and getting into Big 12 play is like, oh, hey, is this like facing a peak Navy football team where they're doing something that no one else does, and it's just hard to prepare for because you don't have a lot of time, and it's annoying, and they just like win games, maybe even against more talented teams than them? Or is it like a non-peak Navy team where it's just like, oh, this team's not very good, and yeah, they can beat up against some bad teams, but good teams are just gonna like not be full. Right. So I think that remains to be seen, and I'm very hopeful, but I think even more than so with a proven program like the men's team, definitely not letting my hopes get up too high too early.
We'll just say, I think this is a deeper team than last year's team. Like, I think Huey can go deeper in the rotation. I think we all agree on that. Yeah. And I like it. It's an extremely veteran team. Like, Boyd is playing, I believe, her 5th or 6th college season. Anya is playing her 6th season. Blair is playing her 4th season. Patterson's playing her 5th season. Like, this is a very old team. And that usually translates positively. And how much it translates positively, I'm not sure. Like you said, kind of alluded to, I don't hate that we're going to give a different look. I feel like if you're going to become a bottom half of the league team, like, you might as well give a different look. Like, they'll have to prepare for something different Houston week than maybe they would have to Cincy week or BYU week or insert name of other Big 12 team here week. But not gonna get ahead of myself, but just going to be happy that maybe this team won't be just frighteningly bad at putting the ball in the basket this year. And then what does that mean for the overall results? Not sure, but at least that might be a more aesthetically pleasing basketball at the very least.
Mm-hmm.
So looking forward, Houston hosts New Orleans on Sunday afternoon. Actually, we should have talked about this beforehand. I went ahead and had some notes from Middle Tennessee next Wednesday as well, just because it might be a close run thing if we have another episode before then or not. And that's actually going to be the first big game of the year, so I didn't want to not talk about that one a little bit. But the first one, obviously a little bit easier to talk about because the Privateers of New Orleans, I think, should give the Cougars a decent shot at breaking the century mark for a 3rd straight game, because not a real strong team. Went 8-20 last year, finished 3-19 in the net rankings. This year 0-3, opened the season with actually a fairly respectable 8-point loss at Oklahoma State, but followed that up losing to Tulsa by 25. And then in their most recent game, took an 87-26 loss to Mississippi State. So, obviously, I don't know if Houston is Mississippi State good, but definitely, a team that Houston, I think, given the way that they're playing thus far, shouldn't expect to have much trouble with. But the Middle Tennessee State, kind of like I said, different story. 28-5 last year. They go to the NCAA tournament on a regular basis. They did last year again. They're 4-2 with a couple losses to good teams, and weirdly enough, 2 wins over Memphis. I think they just played them in a non-conference game and then beat them at a tournament.
Things you hate.
The bad boy mowers bow for Atlantis, Dustin. Respect a Thanksgiving legend there.
There it was. So Thanksgiving legend, my absolute favorite player, I think, that I've come across this year that does not play for Houston women's basketball. They've got a big 6'6" Russian center, Anastasia Boldareva. Just scoring a bunch of points, leading them in scoring. The reason she's my favorite player is because in 2 wins over Memphis, went for a combined 48 points, 25 rebounds, and 9 blocks.
Jesus.
So there's anyone that just sucks the life out of Memphis in basically any sport, you get a little bit of
you get our seal of you get the Scott and Holman podcast seal of approval.
Exactly. I will say, for a high use forward, she's only shooting a hair over 50% from the field. Not very good free throw shooter.
That's terrible for the women. Over 50% field is not terrible for the women's game, though.
Yeah, that's true. Even for a forward, though, it's not fantastic. So I think Houston's goal is to, she's probably, good chance she'll score in double digits, but at least try and make her inefficient. Don't give her an easy bucket, send her to the line where she's only like a 61% shooter as opposed to giving her easy buckets. So, that's a really interesting test for Houston next Wednesday. Like I said, would be surprised if they don't handle New Orleans the way that the early season is going. But, I think Middle Tennessee State, it's that first, kind of like you talked with the men's program, the first team that can really beat them, the first hurdle that's going to kind of tell you more about who you really are this year.
Yeah, first real data point. I just wanted to point out 20 blocks in 6 games. That'll play for Anastasia.
That's not bad.
No.
Yeah, and I don't really have much to add. I think you did a pretty good job of summarizing Middle Tennessee State there, Dustin. Just quick shout out to my all-time
I know where you're going with this.
favorite non U of H athlete of all time. Good old Brandy Brown, who
Brandy!
so had my freshman year, 2007.
I'm gonna find the box score of this. Keep talking, Bobby.
We played Middle Tennessee State in women's basketball, and it was me, Dustin. I don't even know if Sam was there.
I was not. I heard this. I saw you guys like the next day and heard it after. I was not there for that.
And friend of the pod, Kotler, was there, and there was. I think there may have been
There was one other person. There was
Holst there with us.
Maybe there. I specifically remember there being 4 of us though.
So it's halftime. It was.
We're
losing by a decent amount at that point. And we decide that we need to find the person who's killing us the most that we can get inside their head. And we're going through the lineup, and we're going through the top scores, and the top scores are there, and they're all like seniors or juniors. And we're like, oh man, it's tough to get into a senior's head. Well, we see one, and it's Brandy Brown. And she's got like 11 points, something like that at the half. I don't know. It was 15 years ago, 16 years. God, we're getting old, guys. 16 years ago. And we decided that every time she touched the ball, no matter what, we were just going to chant her name. And then when she passed it, we were going to quit chanting her name. And we did it for the entire half. She did not score again. And that sounds like the perfect ending to the story, that she no longer scored again.
And then the huge deficit that we ended up losing by like 1 or 2.
69-68. I have the box score pulled up when you guys are done.
So it sounds like a great ending to the story. And then our friend Kotler Googled her or searched her on Facebook. Remember, this is 2007 when Facebook was like new.
Yes, college. You had to have a college email to get it.
Yep.
And he messages her or posts on her wall or something.
Friend requested her.
Yeah, friend requested her and just put Brandy. And she accepted all of our friend requests. And so I've gone through in all these periodic like friend clean out of like people I never really talk to anymore. I refuse to defriend her, and for some reason she hasn't unfriended us either.
Like, I was gonna say I checked today in the lead up to the podcast. I am still Facebook friends with Brandy Brown Crowell, I believe is her married name now, or Crowell. I'm not sure.
It's just one of those little things that just like 4 people were there. A bunch of people have heard this story, but it's what happens every time I think of Middle Tennessee State University women's basketball. And so like subconsciously, I still kind of follow them. Like when they make the tournament, I'm like, good for Middle Tennessee. Good for them. I hope Brandy's happy right now. I hope she's having a good time watching this.
You guys might have been effective for Brandy Brown. You were not effective for Amber Holt, who had 30 points and 15 rebounds on 13 of 27 shooting against the Cougars. And so I have the box score.
I guess we probably should have targeted her.
Yeah, I was gonna say Brandy Brown is 2 for 9 with 6 points. So good job there. Less good job with Amber Holt. Some names from the Cougar past too. Courtney Taylor, really great Cougar basketball player. I believe this was her freshman year. She had 18 points off the bench. Super insane. Brittany Scott, another good player from the era.
Another good
14 points in 7 minutes. Joe Curl really dropping the ball there, not giving her more minutes. But yeah, just really fun trip down memory lane there. You guys got any more?
I was gonna say, if we're going down memory lane, I just got a real quick. Courtney Taylor last collegiate game was the loss to West Virginia
at Baylor, right?
Up at Baylor. I was sitting next to her parents, and after the game turned and was just like told them how much I had enjoyed watching their daughter play basketball in her college career. So
that's awesome.
Definitely a one of the favorites that I've gotten to watch.
Yeah.
So when we talk
one
about
of one in terms of players in that program, yeah.
Sorry, so when we talk about how like we watch everything, like Dustin traveled to Waco to watch a NCAA women's tournament game and sat next to players, parents and stuff. Like we've been in this for a while, guys. So we there's a reason why we host this podcast and we like doing it. So
a little obsessed with Cougar sports there.
Yeah, a little bit. I would say, fellas. All right, sorry. That's
All right,
a
well,
fun
now that
trip
we've
down memory lane.
thoroughly derailed the podcast. Not that I wasn't going to do a Brandy Brown tangent if you didn't, Bobby, but yes, getting back to the in-season sports, Cougar volleyball split their two matches this past week, sweeping TCU before losing a 5-set heartbreaker to Iowa State. This TCU team was a capable one, so obviously we were very happy to see the Cougars get the sweep and extend their Big 12 winning streak to 8 matches. Claimed the first set 25-17 before some closer second and third sets 25-22, 25-21. And this is a TCU team, like I said, kind of hung around in a couple of sets, but it kind of always felt like Houston was in control. They out hit TCU by at least 85 points in all 3 sets. And defensively had a really strong performance. Rachel Tolis, 7 blocks, Kate Georgiadis, 22 digs, both ridiculous numbers for a 3-set match. And then on the other side, Houston hit well over 200 in all 3 sets with Abby Jackson and Kenna Sauer leading the way as usual. But then unfortunately saw that winning streak come to a halt with the home loss to Iowa State, a game I was at just to make sure my family know what's up and who I cheer for when the chips are down. Cyclones used a big run in the middle of the first set to take a big lead. They won the first set 25-19. Second set much more competitive, but Houston, really struggled with Iowa State's offense. The Cyclones hit really well in this one. The Cougars just looked, just like half a step slow defensively for much of this game. Very uncharacteristic for what we've seen much of this year. Lost the second set 25-23, but the halftime talk from David Rare certainly did something. The Cougars answered after the intermission. In the third set, Houston, with about as good an offensive performance as you're ever going to see, 14 kills and 23 attempts with just 1 attack error. Absolutely ridiculous, hitting well over 500. And then in the fourth set, it was the defense that took over and really, finally locked in and shut down the Cyclones for the first time. Houston won that set as well, 25-15. But then sadly, the momentum just didn't carry over to the 5th set, which was neck and neck up until Iowa State went on a run to take a 14-11 lead, which meant that Houston needed a 3-0 run to stay alive, which they also did, tying it up at 14-all. But then finally, Iowa State, the last 2 points to win the set, 16-14, win the match 3-2. So, tough to finish the week with a home loss to a team that, you were ahead of in the standings, guys, but I think maybe underscores how impressive it's been that they won 8 matches in a row up until this point, given how hard it can be to win matches in the Big 12.
Yeah, you kind of said it, Dustin, but TCU is such an incredible team defensive performance. No TCU player had double-digit digs. Melanie Parra, one of the more prolific offensive players in the Big 12, only had 8 kills. She only hit 73 for the match. Obviously, like you said, Kate Georgiadis is your standout defensive performer. A quick rant here, guys. Her not getting defensive player of the week for this performance is bullshit. Like, congrats to K-State's libero for her nice week against Texas Tech, but Texas Tech's a terrible team. Like, I feel like Georgiadis doing what she did against an opponent that actually has a prayer of playing postseason volleyball is a bit more meaningful, but I guess what do I really know here? Great performances in that one from Abby Jackson, Kenna Sauer as well. Wanted to also single out Nena Mbanu, who maybe haven't talked about her as much, but 8 kills while hitting 429. It's an incredible luxury to have players like Jackson and Sauer and also have someone like Mbanu, who's played high level volleyball now. I think it's her 5th season. Also your 2-headed monster at setter, Morgan Yonda and Annie Cook. I feel like we kind of just take for granted. Oh yeah, we have 2 all conference level setters, like willing to split reps at the position, 32 assists and 15 digs between them. Just an insane luxury. And I think you got challenged more by TCU, which is good. Like, challenges like that and the subsequent match against Iowa State that you lost are good, because your goal, like we talked about basketball, it's not an undefeated season. It's to be the best team you can be once a single elimination postseason comes around, and to really get challenged. Like, it's fun to like play Texas Tech and Oklahoma State and just run them out of the building, but you probably learned more about yourself from this little 2-match stretch here. And again, I think even in that tough loss to the Cyclones, the Cougs showed really incredible fight to battle back down from 2-0 to get this one to a 5th set that you lost by literally the narrowest margin you can lose a set by. I wanted to shout out someone on the opposing team, Jordan Hopp on Iowa State. One of the very best single game or match performances you're going to see against the Cougs this year. 14 kills, hit 462 for the match. I mean, you're just not going to generally see that level of volume and efficiency against a team as good as the Cougs. Kenneth Sauer, great. I think great performance in a losing effort, 19 kills while still hitting a respectable 239, 18 digs as well. Abby Jackson also had a double, 15 kills and 13 digs, about as close a match as you can have. And obviously frustrating to come out of that one on the other side with a loss, but Iowa State's a good squad. Like, they've been kind of up and down this year, but have shown themselves capable of incredible highs, like beating Kansas the week before, just barely dropping the other one to Kansas. I think certainly nobody should change their priors about Cougar volleyball because of this one incredibly close match. The 8-match win streak was going to end at some point. I think you could do a lot worse than having it end by about the narrowest margin you possibly can have it.
Yeah, it's a good overall week, I think. I mean, you lose to Iowa State, and it's really pretty evident how much of this team depends on its defense to win matches, right? When the defense is good, the hitting percentage goes up substantially as well. Just kind of looking at the trend over the last couple of games is the sets you lose, you hit a low percentage while also giving up a large percentage. So it's one of those teams where defense is clearly what fuels their offense and how they are performing. So it's in like I said, you can see it in the different statistics, but overall definitely don't want to be disappointed after a very close loss to Iowa State, right? When you lose the final set by the lowest number you can, and in the set you lost 2 of the 3 that you lost by the lowest margin that you can. So or the biggest margin you can. So or no, lowest. It's the lowest margin that you can. Yeah, hard to be too upset. It's not like Iowa State was this terrible volleyball team or something like that. You lost to somebody who you would like to think that you're a little bit better than, but overall, you're not going to be too disappointed with it.
Yeah, I think both the TCU game and the Iowa State game, Bobby, kind of what you talked about, the interplay between the defense and the offense. You know, it's the dig if you get it in the first place, and then is it, you know, are you giving your setter a nice pass right to her, or is it something that she has to kind of chase down where she has limited options for who she can, you know, set for at that point? You know, maybe you dig it, but it's not even your setter that's able to get to the ball and put up the set. So, you know, I think we saw that versus TCU, where this team, you know, really did well in serve receive, really did well with those first passes on defense to set up the setter, which sets up your offense. And it's, you know, we talk about having good games offensively and defensively, but I think these 2 matches were definitely examples of the 2 being tied to each other for sure.
Absolutely.
And then looking forward, the Cougs close out their regular season with 2 matches this coming week. They'll have a road trip to Baylor on Wednesday that Bobby will be at, as mentioned, and then a home match with Kansas State on Saturday afternoon to close out the season. 2 huge matches, 2 matches that really feel like they could go either way. Baylor, you've got a team that's number 25 in this week's coach ABCA poll. They're just 3 spots behind the Cougs. K-State is receiving votes equivalent to being number 33 with where they are, and the others are receiving votes. So just, you know, huge final week for the Big 12 standings. Houston currently in 4th place at 10-6, 1 game behind BYU, half a game ahead of Kansas State, who they play on Saturday. And then a game ahead of 9-7 Iowa State, who we know now has a tiebreaker with Houston, and, you know, very much capable of being caught by 9-8 Baylor if they lose both of these games, including the one to Baylor on Wednesday. So really big final week of the regular season, which is, you know, it's exciting. This is Houston's first ever Big 12 conference race that they're actually like really involved in and jockeying for, you know, important position in a sport with a bunch of relevant teams who are going to the NCAA tournament. So that's exactly what you want, right? That's what we joined to be doing, and basically, hopefully, in as many sports as possible, is being involved in those kinds of races. And you know, it's just quick reminder: there is no Big 12 volleyball conference tournament, so it is just this week, and then the NCAA tournament after that. But you know, it's pretty exciting, which I think lost track of and kind of thought about as I was putting together my notes for this week, which is to just remember that, you know, prior to last season, we'd gone 2 decades plus without seeing this team in the NCAA tournament, and then we got to see the Sweet 16 run last year, and then already just the very next year, you didn't have a drop off. You had exactly what we hoped to have, which was a season that, from day one to now coming up on the end of the regular season, we kind of knew all along this was going to be an NCAA tournament team. This was a team that's been in the top 25 literally every week of the year up until this point. So just seeing that the level that Houston's been at all year has been so exciting, and just unbelievably excited to watch these last two matches and see where the Cougs shake out in the Big 12 standings and where they end up for the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, the Baylor matchup's an interesting one. They're kind of an enigmatic team, but I think part of that is also they had a really good freshman outside hitter, Kendall Sadowers, who is been out for the season. I think has been out injured since early October. Elise McGee is averaging over 4 kills per set, has 320+ kill performances in her last 6 matches, along with I think good enough efficiency numbers. They have a multi-year starter at libero, Lauren Briseño. I think my question with Baylor is, do they have the firepower to beat this Cougar team? They've been kind of hot and cold. They were coming off the weekend before losing both their matches to TCU, a TCU team that we saw the Cougars beat 3-0. But I'm not going to underestimate a top 25 opponent who you're playing on the road in their final regular season home match of the season. I'm sure it'll be a good atmosphere in Waco, Bobby. And yeah, K-State's also a really intriguing team. It was a team that was 6-10 in the Big 12 last year, made a coaching change, brought in Jason Mansfield, who'd been an assistant with some West Coast Powers previously, Washington most recently, but Stanford before that, and just immediate emphatic results there. They gave the Longhorns their only blemish of the Big 12 season, wins over good Baylor and Iowa State teams, a 2-match sweep of BYU. I wouldn't say that I'm not concerned about the Wildcats, but we'll note that they are 4-6 in true road settings versus 9-4 at their friendly confines in Manhattan. Will absolutely have one of the best liberos the Cougars will see this year. Mackenzie Morris, who has 320+ dig matches in her last 5, including 24 and a 5-set loss to Kansas earlier this month. Staff did a good job in the portal too. I think none bigger than Izzy Sholseski from Oregon State, who's averaging just under 8 assists per set as their starting setter, is second on the team in digs. Also, Leah Carter, a former multi-time all-conference Big 12 selection, having a good final season with the Cats, averaging over 4 kills per set. So yeah, I think you saw kind of an inconsistent team with both of these opponents at different points in the season, but good enough in both counts to beat the Cougars head-to-head if the Cougars don't bring their A game.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing with this week is you want to win these games, mainly because you want to finish higher in the Big 12 standings, but also these are the kind of games that affect your seeding in the NCAA tournament, right? With there not being a conference championship tournament, this winning this week's the difference between a 4 seed and a 6 seed, right? Because you're playing teams that are pretty close to you in those seedings. At number 22, you're kind of sitting in that 5 seed range, but you beat a top 25 team in another team that is receiving votes. Maybe that bumps you up into the top 20, and you're looking at a 4 or 5 seed versus a 6, 7 seed. It really could, if you lose both of them, you could drop out of the top 25, and it can really affect your seeding. These are teams that are going to be close to you on the line, and you want to make sure that you are getting the higher seeding than them. Just when you kind of think big picture level when it comes to that kind of stuff. So
champagne problem that this team can lose lose both these games and still like be comfortably on the right side of the tournament bubble. But yeah, obviously very much agree with everything you said, Bobby.
Yep.
All right, and I guess we have to talk about Cougar football before we go.
Unsubscribe. I unsubscribed to this newsletter.
Just obligated. Like throwing your voice, being like, "Oh, honey, sorry, I gotta go help with dinner, guys. I gotta get off this I don't have it, guys. I don't have it in me to do like the full recaps. I'll just do kind of an abbreviated one.
That's fine.
This was the first time since the UTSA game that you got your opponent to punt on their first drive. The positives were few and far between after that.
What happened?
Cougs were at one point. I will note also a really nice pass from Donovan Smith to Jonah Wilson for his first career positive yards reception, also first career touchdown. That was a nice play. Isaiah Hamilton perfectly timing pick 6 for the first Cougar touchdown. That was nice. You had an opportunity at one point, and that's kind of the really painful thing about this game, as much as I can feel pain about this team that I've kind of honestly checked out on, is that you had them up 14-3 and punting before you committed just a dumb, unsportsmanlike conduct penalty, which ended up being part of a drive where OSU scored to cut to 14-9. And you had it at 23-9. And your offense was looking good. Your defense was looking good enough. You're up 23-9, had the ball, and actually I think I had gotten a first down or two on that possession, and Donovan Smith throws it to an Oklahoma State player, and I don't think there's a Cougar player within 7 or 8 yards of the OSU defender. I realize guys can break off routes. I realize that, reading a defense, there's more to it than meets the naked eye, but that was one of the worst interceptions I've ever seen. Oklahoma State capitalizes on getting that, immediately scores a touchdown. Actually, U of H gets bailed out later, because at this point the U of H offense completely comes to a halt. Eventually 7 straight punts following that just back-breaking interception. You got bailed out by an Oklahoma State block in the back that frankly kept this from being potentially a tie game. At the half, they end up having to go 23-19. And I think I said it at the half, you have to score in this first possession. You have to do something to get momentum back. And of course, the Cougs would punt on their next 2 possessions. You blinked and Oklahoma State was up by double digits. And really, other than a nice Donovan Smith, we'll also note, really, really cool trick play from Manjack to Donovan Smith. Smith actually had a rushing, receiving, and a passing touchdowns game. Not something you see every day, but precious little to feel excited about from that. 43-30 final. Oklahoma State wins 43-30. Frankly, might have even flattered how close this thing was for the last 2.5 quarters. Dustin, you've had the luxury or the something positive of not having talked into a microphone about this very bad football game. So where would you like to start?
I think the thing that kind of springs to mind for my big picture thought for this game is just how unsurprising it was. I guess it was a little bit surprising that Houston jumped out to the early lead, got the pick 6 and all that. But, Houston playing well for a quarter and a half before crumbling to dust and losing by multiple scores. Shocking, guys. Houston playing a team of any quality whatsoever under Dana Holgorsen and failing to win the game. Stunner. I can't believe it. Houston's defense letting Ollie Gordon run for 164 and Alan Bowman throw for 348. Hold the presses. Donovan Smith looking impressive at times, looking like a freshman playing his first college football game at times. Who could have possibly foreseen this? Okay, I'm being a little bit sarcastic. I'll try to tone it down a notch or two here, but what about this have we not seen before? And it's just I've had multiple text conversations with multiple friends this week, people I met going to Cougar football games, people who, like me, have long ago fallen in love with this program, friends who look forward to Cougar football all off season, and all saying the same version of kind of what you're saying. What we're all saying is it's a chore to watch this team. We just can't wait for the season to be over. God, we can talk about so many things about the direction of this program and whatnot, but that just, it speaks volumes. This game just was. We lost by multiple scores. We lost by multiple scores at home to a team that's been, up and down, but coming off of a bad loss and just suddenly looked like a much better team against us. And it's just of course, all of that happened. Why wouldn't all of that happen? We just don't really have a program that is running the way a healthy program is supposed to work right now.
Yeah, it's ugly. It's plain and simple. There's nothing else to say. It's ugly. There were times when this game looked good where you got excited, and I mentioned this in the premium pod, but I remember sending Sam a text that said, I love this version of Donovan Smith, because he had just picked up some first downs with his feet. And I mean, it couldn't have been more than 20 seconds after I hit send.
I'll give you I think it was a minute.
Okay, fine, that's better. That makes me feel better. That was the most. I've done a lot of Donovan Smith defending on this pod. I will be the first to admit it. On social media, I have been no, I've watched the last game before Oklahoma State, the Cincy game, when he didn't look very good, and I was he was under pressure the whole time. Guys, that interception is legitimately one of the worst throws I've ever seen at any level. I've seen some high school games where I'm just that's not good. That looks like a duck. There wasn't a Cougar anywhere near where he was trying to throw that ball. If there wasn't an Oklahoma State player right there and that just falls to the ground, there's a chance he gets called for intentional grounding. It was so bad. It's such a bad throw. But it's just, I'm baffled by the fact that Doug Belk still has a job. I think I screamed about this for a good 15 minutes, but how is it game 11 and you're still getting too many men on the field penalties?
It had to call timeout because you had too few.
10.
Like less than 10
at one
less
point.
than 2 minutes into the fucking game. I was like, why is he burning 11. A timeout with a minute and a half? And I think I saw Ryan from GoKooks tweet like, "Oh, there were 10 men on the field." It's just like, how is this happening?
Yeah. It's just I don't understand it. It's baffling that it's game 11. Game 11. You get some of those substitution penalties game 3. Even game 3, you're going, come on, guys. We're a month into the season here. We got to be a little bit better than this. We're getting it at the end of the season. We still can't substitute properly. And here's the other thing. They allow you to substitute now. If the other team's running hurry up, don't sub. They're going to huddle up and they're going to sub. And when they sub, you can sub.
Yeah, you can see when they sub too. It's right in front of you. If you see an Oklahoma State guy running off, okay, good.
Yeah. We have
sub.
time to sub. And we can't even get that right. We can't even, and even if you're going to say, hey, we didn't have the right personnel on the field, you're telling me that whoever's coming off the field can't play run support for one effing down? Like he can't guard against the run on second down just because you had him out there to pin his ears back to go rush the quarterback? He can't set an edge. If he can't, then you've recruited the wrong guys. And these are your guys at this point. These are Dana's guys. I don't understand it. It's the most frustrating thing that I saw all game was that. I can talk about offensive scheme, defensive scheme. We can talk about all that. Just the basic substitution patterns are wrong. And it's game 11, guys.
We regularly talk about anytime we criticize the coaching staff, I feel like one of us is quick to do the whole like, hey, we're going to acknowledge these guys have forgotten more about football than we'll ever know. Like we are a couple of schmucks. There's a reason these guys are getting paid lots of money to coach. Well, I guess, for now, at least they're still getting paid a lot of money to coach football. And we are not, even if U of H fires them, someone will continue to pay these guys money to coach football if they want. Whereas no one making that offer to us for good reason.
Yeah.
So like that's all fair and well and good and worth saying. I can count to 11. I'm sure as hell can count to 11. So like maybe they should hire me. I don't know. I feel like I could be in charge of making sure there are 11 players on the field, not 10 and not 12, but 11.
Think of how many staffers we have.
I was gonna say we have magnitudes more support staff. That's one thing. I don't want to like do any kind of major Applewhite apologia here, but like we have magnitudes more support staff now under this head coach than we did Major or Herman or Levine. You have people for that. You have people up in the booth like, oh, hey man, like we don't have the right number of people in the field. And just like we consistently fail, this program does like the most basic operational standards. Cause that's what getting the right guy. That's just literally its operations, just getting the right number of people in the fucking field. And outside of that Isaiah Hamilton pick 6, guys, this was a deplorably bad defensive performance. Alan Bowman throws for his season high in yards by a pretty wide margin. Stop if that sounds familiar. Like Gundy goes almost the full first half not using Ollie Gordon really. It was almost like he was doing a challenge like, hey, can I beat them without Ollie Gordon? And kind of realized like as U of H was coughing up, no, I don't think I can. All right, like
I was gonna say fully 3 times during the first half, I pulled up my phone and like Twitter searched Ollie Gordon's name just to see if he was injured. I'm like, why are they not just running the ball down our throats?
Yeah.
Sam texted me and was like, at some point is Gundy gonna realize that he has the best running back in the nation?
Yeah,
and we can't stop anybody on who runs the ball. And I was like, I sure hope not.
But three different quarterbacks, including Alan Bowman, have thrown for their season high in yards against us. JT Daniels just barely missed. I think he threw for like 30 more against USF or something like that. Rice's quarterback who absolutely shredded us in week 2 when we played it. I asked Bobby this in game, Dustin, and I should have put it in the group chat with you. When is the last time one of our DBs has won a one-on-one? Like I know one-on-ones are hard. Like you don't want your defensive back, and it's hard to defend, to get the ball and keep it from going to the opposing receiver without interfering. I realize it is a challenge. I feel like we haven't seen it in like 2 years. Like just anytime I see a UH defensive back one-on-one with a receiver, I'm like, this guy, if this ball is remotely on target, the opposing receivers going to catch it. And frankly, I feel lucky when there's even a UH defender nearby. Most of the time, it's just like we're running a soft zone and there's like Halsey and two different DBs like looking at Brendan Presley, who 11 catches in is wide open somehow. We were playing like 7 or 8 yards off Brendan Presley when he was like 13 catches into his near school record performance. Like there's just no recognition, it seems like, week to week of what this defense is bad at and how to fix. No, there was. It was the UT game where we went to a 3-3-5 stack look, which kind of seemed to throw off the Longhorns. That was it. That was all of our good defensive ideas the last 2 years. That's it.
What
$1 million a fucking year for a defense that can't get the right number of people in the field, and a defensive back hasn't won a one-on-one and since Marcus Jones stopped having eligibility here.
It's hard for a DB to win one-on-one when the quarterback can read his numbers and name on the back of his jersey because he's run right past him. Like
Fair.
it's mind-boggling how you can make $1 million a year and just not. It just shows how much talent, the old phrase X's, you can do all your X's and O's, but it doesn't replace, what is it, like Franks and Joe's or whatever
Jimmy's
it is.
Jimmy's
and Joe's. Yeah, whatever it is. Like, and we discussed this on the pod as well, on the premium pod, is just like, that defense made Doug Belka $1 million a year and made us poor. And it just shows that if he doesn't have the guys, he's not scheming anything that makes the defense look good. At some point, scheme can cover up a lack of talent because you could put guys in the right position that they can't fail. And we just have not done that.
Yeah, Doug Belk inherited 3 NFL defensive players.
Yeah, that makes it easy.
His first year as defensive coordinator, and since then we've neither found more NFL quality players via recruiting. We've not coached up any more NFL defensive quality players, and we haven't put together a scheme that makes any of our defensive players look like more than the sum of their parts as a whole. So that's pretty much the pat little summary of the last 2 years of the Cougar defense.
Yep. Great stuff. Great. Glad we're paying this defensive coordinator more than we've paid any head coach prior to Tom Herman, even inflation adjusted. It's good stuff.
Are we paying Doug Belk a lot of money? I haven't.
It doesn't change week to week. Like other than maybe like, oh, we showed a different look against the Longhorns, that kind of threw them off. Like that's it. It's always like guys getting open in the middle of our zone. It's always outside of like Nelson Caesar, nobody able to remotely like put any kind of pressure on the quarterback. Like it's fantastic. And Nelson Caesar is going to be on someone's NFL roster here in about a year's time. And we have literally nobody else. Jamari Caldwell from the interior position, which I think he's fine. He's done a decent job there, but that's not what Jamari Caldwell's on the field to do. He's on the field to take up multiple interior linemen and maybe occasionally it doesn't get better week to week. And yet I somehow keep putting myself in front of a TV and watching it. Just all of it, just an absolute all around, just nice little turd of an effort to fully extinguish any hope that this team is going to accomplish something of note this year. And it's to get a little bigger picture. It makes my blood boil to hear Fertitta get up there and just say, oh, okay, we're meeting expectations, and it kind of making it seem like, people want to see another year of Dana. Nobody wants to see another year of this. I'm sure you could find some absolutely just deluded, cooked brain Cougar fans that like, we'll just need more time. We need more time. The guy who hasn't really evaluated well in the AAC, hasn't beaten anyone worth a damn in almost 5 years. He just needs more time and resources. The man has had more fucking time and resources than any U of H coach of our lifetime. And what do we get? We get this shitty ass product that like is always the thing that like puts us in a worse mood. Like volleyball was so much fun. Like volleyball has been so much fun the last couple of years. Men's basketball last 5 or 6 years.
Life in the Big 12, man.
And you know what's crazy, by the way? Go back to basketball a second. After the Utah game, Kelvin Sampson's like, you know what? I didn't prepare my guys for Utah having basically the perimeter big men that they had. I didn't get them well enough ready for that. That's on me. Have you ever heard Dana Holgerson, a man who won't even ever accomplish even a fraction of what Kelvin Sampson has accomplished in his sport, take that level of responsibility for his team not performing well? Have either of you? Am I forgetting something?
No.
That's in a nutshell. That's it. That's the difference between these programs in a nutshell. You have somebody who actually like has some kind of internal examination. Like, how could I be better at this? As opposed to someone who just goes up there and grumbles, oh, resources and it's life of the Big 12 and my goal is to play competitive football games. Well, if your goal is to play competitive football games, it's a fucking failure. And everything about this year is a fucking failure. And fuck me for spending 11 games of my time to watch this and then the subsequent time to talk about it. That's it. That's it. And we're going to talk about the UCF game. And we're probably going to talk about the UCF game once it's thankfully in the rearview mirror. But at least the first season, as discouraging as it was, okay, you're at the beginning of something here. Dana did have some valid points, but okay, like we need to get this roster older and more experienced. 4 years later, guys, we are not a damn bit ahead of where we were 48 months ago at this time.
Mm-hmm.
Good stuff. I'm feeling very good about things with this program.
Did we mention we're recruiting like garbage too? Because it's been 5 minutes since we mentioned that at least.
Every past, present, and future facing indicator in this program is bad, and the money people are just like, I don't know, what could you expect? I don't know how you could expect a coach to succeed in the Big 12 their first year. We don't have two that are doing it right now in our programs, like going on in current seasons. Certainly not.
Nothing like that.
Hey, but at least we're playing competitive games because that's what we like, right? Is competitive games.
When I think competitive, it's Oklahoma State outscoring us 34-7. That's real competitive to me personally.
I mean, other than all the games and halves that we haven't been competitive, we've been pretty competitive. So.
Right, we've been pretty good there.
Yeah. Do you guys know how many times we've scored over 30 points this year? Our offensive genius, the head coach. How many times we scored over 30 points? We scored 30 this Saturday though. 7 was a pick 6, but over 30 points this year without cheating. I think, Bobby, I asked you this.
Sam no. West Virginia? Is it just Sam in West Virginia? Am I forgetting somebody?
Yep, Sam in West Virginia.
What Those ones where we scored in Rice.
Oh shit. Okay. Oh, sorry. In regulation. Excuse me. That was that was the important qualifier they left out there. Sorry, my bad. Regulation.
Yeah. I was like, what did we end up with?
It was 28. It was 28 in regulation against Rice, if memory serves.
Not great. No,
yeah, not great. All of it.
All right,
not great.
We're talking about the UCF game. Woo!
Woo! Who's
the
ready
least
to watch
notes
John
I've
Reese?
had for an opponent this year. Let's do it.
Who's ready to watch John Reese Plumlee just absolutely destroy our defense? I'm sorry.
Right.
Go ahead.
No,
Dustin.
mispronounce his name. Call him Central Florida. Call him John Reese Plumlee. Like, just do it. Keep the bit going.
What's our football season going to become more of a bummer if we start getting people's names wrong too? No, he could be John Reese Plumlee. I don't care.
I'm going with it.
Yeah, I think my first kind of thought for this game is just like, like who is going to show up? I guess maybe UCF is going to be motivated because they're 5-6, so they need to win to get to the bowl game. And I think maybe that's what like the line movement is reacting to, because we saw this one open as like 9 points and has now moved to 13.5. For the Central Florida Golden Knights and their quarterback John Reese Plumlee. Damn it, I can't even mess up his name.
You're just too much of a professional. I'm looking to see if the line is moved. Also,
the last name has gotten mispronounced my whole life. I just can't do it. It's just not in me. But no, I mean, I think this is the kind of game where, like, I don't know, like if a player on either team has NFL like thoughts and was like, yeah, I'm gonna sit this one out, I'd be like, cool, man, don't get yourself injured in this stupid game between these two bad teams. Like if Nelson Caesar is like, yeah, I've played my last game, is like, man, more power to you. I like genuinely could not support him more if that's what he wants to do. That's how much I care about this.
I'll create a sign that says way to go, Nelson.
Nelson Caesar, have a seat, dude. Don't get injured. But no, I think that's kind of my big thought. It's just like more than any of the matchups is just like, as I said, I assume UCF will probably show up at least somewhat. Like, is Houston gonna show up to this one? They have nothing to play for other than pride. They're just, this is your last game of your season either way. It's been a bummer of a season other than, maybe like the one drive in the second half. This sure looked like a team that in the second half had thrown in the towel. So I guess that's my overall big picture. Do we expect this Houston Cougar team emotionally to even show up to Orlando on Saturday? I don't know.
Your question could be, do you expect this Houston Cougar team to and just stop? And I'd be like, probably not. Probably not.
I mean, this team, and I'm not. This is not full-throated defense of this staff, who I've made my opinions on it very, very clear in this episode and others.
Have you?
Have I? No, but like, that is generally like a positive-ish thing you could say, is that for the things that haven't gone right, this team generally seems to like and support the staff, and be engaged. But also, like, I'm not gonna lie, didn't look as Oklahoma State was doing that 34-7 finish to the game against us. Didn't look like a team that was all in out there. And I don't know, man. Like, UCF has their flaws. I mean, they're 5-6 for a reason, 4-6 against FBS opponents because they have that win against Villanova there. But like, do you expect this Cougar defense to shut down a veteran quarterback in Plumlee in a passing attack? No. Like, do you expect them to shut down what's been statistically one of the most productive running games in the country? God, no. And do you expect this Cougar offense to do something consistently away from home? Like, you've seen a couple of good performances at home this year offensively, but like away from home, this offense that already is not that good has basically fallen off a cliff. You scored 17 points in regulation against Baylor, a team that is as laughably bad as anyone in this league. Like, why is that going to change this week against a team that'll probably have a pretty good sized crowd for a 5-6 team out there that'll be motivated, like Dustin said, that, hey, if you win this, you're bowl eligible in your first Power 5 season, which, like, there are bigger achievements, but I don't think anyone at UCF will be terribly mad about that. They got 9 4-stars committed in this coming class. Like I talked about, like, this, all the indicators of the U of H program are bad. Not all are bad with UCF. I know Gus Malzahn has his flaws as a coach just from all the years he's at Auburn there, but like, at least there's talent coming. At least you're seeing the bump that you should see from being in the Big 12, and it's not happening here. It seems to be happening there, and I think there's a legit reason they're still, as of a minute ago, a 13.5 point betting favorite over at Cirque out here in the desert. So I don't know, man. I'm grateful. I was kind of hoping this would be a Friday game because I'd forgotten when exactly it was during this kind of extended Thanksgiving weekend, but was very happy when I saw that this game will be on at 9 a.m. local time for me. So I can, by about lunchtime, just completely wash my hands of this terrible season. Like, that was, I saw it and I was like, that was the first thing that's made me happy about Cougar football since the Manjack to Smith trick play, was seeing that it was like an early kick on Saturday. I was like, cool. I have to, like, because my significant other's family will be in town for Thanksgiving here. Cool. I don't have to like be antisocial after lunch and be like, no, I can't do this family thing. I have to watch my 4-7 college football team that makes me mad on a weekly basis. I mean, the future father-in-law is a Cowboys fan, so he might understand at least that part a bit.
Shot at the Cowboys.
I know you love your Cowboys, but like, I'd rather not. And I'm happy that this game is early, and I'm happy about absolutely nothing else. And that's, I think, my last personal thought about this game.
Yeah, what can I say? I mean, UCF is going to come in playing for something, playing for a bowl game. They are what you want to be after you do this transition, right? To the Big 12. They are recruiting at a higher level. They may go bowling in their first year. They have looked competitive against
good crowds at home, good energized crowds at home.
Yeah. They have looked decent in their losses, right? I mean, they played Baylor close. They lost by 13 to Kansas State. That's not great, but it's better than what we did, right? Got destroyed by Kansas, played OU to the final whistle pretty much if you watch that game. And just absolutely destroyed an Oklahoma State team that was ranked 15th at the time. Like, they played competitive against some good teams, and they are what you want to be at this point. And they got a chance to go bowling in their first Big 12 year and accomplish their goal. I think if you gave them truth serum, right, any coach will say our goal is to go out and win every game that we play. But if you give them truth serum, they're going to tell you that bowl is pretty much what we could max expect in going into the season. And they got a chance to accomplish their goal, and I don't see any reason why we're going to stop them.
Yeah, I think UCF is actually kind of a good example of one of the things we talked about before the year started. We talked throughout the year in terms of what are your expectations for the season, right? Because I remember it being really hard at the beginning of the year when people, oh, like how many wins? Like 5 wins, 6 wins? Like what's your expectation? What's a good year? And you guys, I don't know, just feel like it's more about how they look, right? UCF was only as of right now. I suspect this will change after Saturday's game. As of right now, only one game better than us on the year, right? 5-6 to our 4-7. So a pretty minimal difference in the grand scheme of things. But kind of like you guys are talking about, the like all the other indicators of where this program is. Like if we were 4-7, but had played OU competitively and had just beaten Oklahoma State and had just like, didn't really have, that many games where he just went completely AWOL and maybe had a starting quarterback getting banged up to kind of blame for some of the up and down. And we're recruiting really well. You'd be like, yeah, like it would be hard to get really worked up about like firing Dana and wanting to see a leadership change heading into next year. Are there plenty of UCF fans who don't think Gus Malzahn is the long-term answer? Yeah. Is he maybe not the long-term answer? That's possible. But like, he's given you enough at this point that you go, oh, hey, we look like a team that is meaningfully and semi-successfully transitioning to the Big 12. And in stark contrast to a Houston program that's doing,
the opposite.
None of that. So that's a fun place to be in heading into this game.
I just want to say, I actually have one more thought. Like, my preferred outcome here is a Cougar win here. Like, no matter how down I am in the program, I am always rooting for this team to win. Always. That is choice number one. That's what would happen. Choice number two, I'm going to be honest here. I'm going to potentially make Cougar fans mad at me for the second time this season. If we're not going to win this game, which I hope we do, that is my number one outcome I want to happen. I'd rather get our ass kicked. I want Tillman Fertitta and Chris Pesman and any other UH public facing people to come out next week and be like, we really see progress after a 5 or 6 touchdown loss. Like, if we're not going to win this game, I hope they fucking put it on us. Like, honestly, I'd rather us win this game. I like 100% my preferred outcome here, but I don't want a close loss here. I want to see us either win this game or do something like the Armed Forces Bowl in 2018, where like the decision makers look at that and then they look at the Oklahoma State game after they made all those public comments, with a vote of confidence, and just have to be like, oh, no. Actually, the team that lost 42-13 to UCF is really making progress. Like, long-term indicators are good. Like, they'll probably still do it, but like, I'd at least like something, if it's not going to be a Cougar win, which again, preferred outcome here, I'd rather something to make the decision makers really, really question whether this is the long-term answer if it's not going to be a win.
Yeah, I get that.
I think I'm done talking. I think I'm just done. I think I'm done. Not with this podcast. Like, I'm not quitting on air. Don't worry, guys. But just like, I don't think there's anything else I want to talk about unless you guys feel differently.
No, man. I think it's just, I'm very happy that we only have to talk about this football season 1, maybe 2 more times.
Look at that, full circle. We're giving thanks, as we talked about at the start of the show. We have gratitude, we have thanks, and hopefully in a week's time, I'm grateful for Dana Holgerson not being the head coach here, but not hold my breath on that one.
Yeah, don't. You'll probably pass out. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's, it's funny. As much as we talk about the UCF game, that is also kind of like, that's it. Like at that point, that's when you got to make a decision, right? So we talk about, okay, well, once the UCF game is over, we can stop talking about football. But let's be honest, we're not going to, because after that, we're either, they're going to either have to come out and say, yeah, he's coming back next year, or they're going to have to, or they're going to make a change. So that is the remaining football story after the UCF game is what does the administration choose to do? What does the administration feel like they can afford to do in terms of the future of this program? But yeah, not a good spot to be in for this program. So, your options are basically just spin your wheels, waste away for another year, and before you give finally someone else a fresh shot, or you just go ahead and rip that Band-Aid off now. So, we shall see.
Absolutely.
On our way out, we'll go ahead and give a big thank you to our Scott and Holman podcast Patreon supporters, our absolute favorite people, continuing to just make us unbelievably proud to do this podcast for y'all, continuing to put money towards something that will always be offered for free, but we do appreciate that very much. If you do enjoy this podcast on a regular basis, you feel like you can afford $5 or more per month to support the work that the three of us do to bring you Cougar content, unique Cougar content every week, we would love for you to go to patreon.com/SH podcast, where you can sign up to get some bonus material and give yourself the good karma of supporting your local Cougar podcasters. You can also support us by leaving a 5-star review in your app of choice and by supporting our partners, charliehustle.com and the 1012 Network. If you want to get in contact with us, you can tweet at us at SH Podcast. You can blue sky at us at podcast.bsky.social. You can email us shpodcast@gmail.com. You made it all the way to the end of this episode. You're a trooper. You're an all-star. We love you. And as always,
Go Cougs.